My name's Lily Foster, I'm 32, and this is the story of how my sister, a successful New York lawyer, tried to strip me of everything I loved. They say every old house has a soul. Ours had two, one gentle and kind, and the other quietly waiting for a storm. For as long as I can remember, Grandma's home had been the heart of our family. White curtains, a porch that creaked with age, the faint smell of lavender and lemon polish. It was where birthdays were celebrated, arguments healed, and stories never seemed to end. But as Grandma grew older, so did the shadows in that house. And one of those shadows wore my sister's face. Emma, my older sister, was the kind of person who could light up a room. Brilliant, ambitious, always perfectly composed. She had the kind of confidence that made people believe her words before they even made sense. She was also a lawyer, and not the kind that helped people but the kind that helped herself. Everything with her was about winning. Me. I was the quiet one. The one who stayed home, helped Grandma with her medicine, watered her plants, made her tea just the way she liked, with honey and a slice of lemon. Emma would call once a week, usually from her office. "How's the old bird?" she'd say with a laugh, never realizing Grandma could hear her. But Grandma always forgave. She'd smile and whisper, "She's just busy, dear. She'll come around." I wanted to believe that too. Until the winter everything changed. It started the day Emma came back. Suitcase in hand, smile rehearsed, perfume too strong for comfort. She hadn't visited in nearly a year. "I just thought I'd stay for a while," she said, stepping into the living room like she still owned it. "Work's been crazy, and I missed you, Grandma." Grandma, of course, welcomed her with open arms. That's who she was. Trusting, gentle, too kind for her own good. But I noticed the small things. The way Emma's eyes lingered on the antique clock. The gold bracelet on Grandma's wrist. The locked cabinet in the corner. The one holding her financial papers. And when Grandma went to rest, Emma would stay behind, her phone out, taking photos of documents. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. But the look in her eyes told a different story. One that smelled of greed. One evening, as I brewed tea, I overheard her whispering in the kitchen. "Yes, Mr. Reynolds. I've convinced her to update everything. We'll handle the paperwork tomorrow." Mr. Reynolds, the family lawyer. The man who'd been by Grandma's side since Grandpa's passing. Why was Emma talking to him in secret? I stepped into the room, pretending I'd heard nothing. She smiled that perfect fake smile of hers. "Oh, Lily, you startled me. Just talking work stuff. You wouldn't understand." That last part stung more than I wanted to admit. Because she was right. I wasn't a lawyer. I was just the girl who stayed behind. But Grandma's health was fading fast. And deep down I knew. Emma hadn't come home for love. She'd come for the fortune. A week later, I found Grandma in her study, writing something by lamplight. When she saw me, she smiled softly. "Come sit, sweetheart." Her hand trembled as she opened her drawer and pulled out a small golden locket. Delicate, old-fashioned, with a single ruby in the center. "This has been in our family for generations," she said. "And now it's yours." I tried to protest, but she shook her head. "Inside is a key, Lily. And when the time comes, you'll know what it opens." Her words carried a weight I didn't understand then. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she whispered one last thing. "Promise me, child. Don't let greed destroy what love built." I nodded, not realizing that by the next sunrise, that promise would become a war. Because by morning I found Emma in Grandma's study again. This time she wasn't pretending. She was holding the will, Grandma's will, in her hands. Her expression hardened when she saw me. "Don't look at me like that," she said coldly. "I'm making sure everything's in order. Grandma's not thinking clearly anymore. Someone has to protect her assets." Could barely speak. "Protect or take." A smirk. "You always were dramatic." Then she left, the papers tucked under her arm. For the first time in my life, I saw my sister for who she really was. Not the perfect lawyer, not the confident achiever, but a thief in pearls, smiling through betrayal. And somewhere in the back of my mind, Grandma's words echoed again. The key will tell the truth when the time comes. I just didn't know yet. The time was closer than I thought. I remember that Saturday morning vividly. Mom's voice echoed through the hallway before the sun even rose. Maya, don't forget to dust the living room before the guests come. That word always made my stomach twist. Because guests didn't mean celebration. It meant performance. It meant pretending our family was perfect. And I was the maid behind the curtain making it all look effortless. Dad was polishing his new wristwatch in the mirror. Mom was arranging flowers, not because she loved them but because important people were coming. That morning I wore my oldest clothes. Comfortable, faded, soft from years of cleaning in them. I didn't know that those clothes, those maid clothes, would be the last thing my parents would ever see me wearing as their servant. By noon, the house smelled like lemon polish and fake smiles. Mom had gone all out. A crystal dish with imported candies, silverware that hadn't seen daylight in years, and her prized china cups. Then came the sound of a car engine. Smooth, expensive, confident. Gasp. He's here. The he in question was Mr. Jonathan Hayes, the CEO of a multinational firm. Dad wanted to impress him badly. He'd been trying to get a contract with his company for months. I peeked through the curtains and saw a man step out. Tall, calm, expensive suit, polished shoes. Mom turned to me with a hiss. Don't embarrass us today. Stay quiet. Just serve tea and leave. I nodded, even though something inside me ached. I wanted to scream, I'm not your maid, Mom. I'm your daughter. But silence was easier. It always had been. The doorbell rang. Dad opened the door with his best fake laugh. Mr. Hayes. What an honor. Mom followed, oozing sweetness. Please come in. We've been so excited to have you. I stood behind, holding the tea tray, invisible as ever. But then something strange happened. Mr. Hayes's eyes landed on me. Not in the usual dismissive way people looked at servants, but with recognition. He smiled. Maya, is that you? The tray nearly slipped from my hands. Mom blinked, confused. You know our maid. Mr. Hayes chuckled softly. Maid. No. Maya was one of the brightest analysts in my company's startup program 2 years ago. She was brilliant. Mom's jaw dropped. Dad froze. The silence in the room was deafening. But she did. I was wrong. All those times I made you feel small. I thought I was protecting you. I didn't want you to get hurt chasing dreams. I shook my head. You didn't protect me, Mom. You caged me. She looked down, ashamed. Dad joined her, awkward and quiet. We're proud of you, he said finally. Even if we didn't show it. For the first time, I saw a flicker of truth in his eyes. Not pride in himself, but pride in me. A few months later, I moved into my own apartment overlooking the city skyline. It wasn't about luxury. It was about freedom. Every morning, I'd make my coffee and watch the sunrise. A reminder that I'd built this life on my own terms. Mom still called sometimes. Her tone was softer now. She'd ask things like, "Are you eating enough? Do you need help with anything?" And though part of me still carried old scars, I'd smile and say, "I'm doing great, Mom." 'Cause I was. Months later, during a corporate charity gala, I stood at the podium, speaking about resilience and growth. As I spoke, I caught a glimpse of my parents in the crowd, sitting quietly, listening. When the speech ended, people clapped. Reporters snapped photos. But my eyes stayed on them. Mom mouthed the words, "We're sorry." And for the first time I believed her. I used to think revenge meant making them feel what I felt. But standing there in that glittering ballroom I realized, real revenge is success that speaks so loudly, you don't have to say a word. I didn't need to prove them wrong anymore. I had proven myself right. They called me invisible. They treated me like the help. But today, I'm the one signing their paychecks. It had been 6 months since that unforgettable gala. 6 months since I stopped living as the quiet daughter who obeyed, and became the woman who leads. My days were filled with meetings, contracts, travel, and decision-making. Every now and then, I'd catch a glimpse of my old life, the one I had to fight so hard to leave behind. The girl scrubbing floors, doing laundry, staying invisible. She was still there in fragments, but she no longer defined me. I'd built something new, something mine. One Thursday morning, as I was preparing for a quarterly board meeting, my assistant buzzed in. "Ms. Patel, there's a couple here to see you. They say they're your parents." Froze. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. My parents, here. I hadn't seen them since the gala. We'd exchanged polite calls now and then, but never visits. I took a deep breath. "Send them in." The door opened. Mom walked in first, dressed carefully like she'd spent hours deciding what to wear. Dad followed, quieter than usual, carrying an old leather briefcase. They both looked smaller somehow. Not physically but emotionally. As if the arrogance that once filled every room they entered had drained away. "Maya," Mom began softly, "you've built quite the empire." I smiled politely. "I've been lucky. And I've worked hard." Dad cleared his throat. "We actually came because we need your help." The words hung in the air like static. Help. From the daughter they used to treat like a servant. They explained everything. Dad's business, the one he'd poured years into, was failing. His biggest client had pulled out. The company was on the verge of collapse. He looked tired, defeated, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel anger. Felt empathy. Mom spoke next, her voice trembling. "We thought we had everything figured out, Maya. But maybe we were wrong. We never thought we'd have to ask you for help." I wanted to say, "Now you know how it feels." I wanted to remind them of every insult, every chore, every time they told me I'd never make it. But instead I just sat there, silent, because revenge no longer tasted sweet. Felt unnecessary. Still, I wasn't going to make this easy. "So you need a bailout?" I asked calmly. Dad nodded. "We were hoping your company could take us on as a partner, or maybe invest. It would mean the world to us." The irony was almost poetic. The same parents who once laughed at my startup ambitions were now asking my corporation for rescue. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying their faces in my head. The desperation, the guilt, the humility. Part of me wanted to turn away. Let them face the consequences. But another part remembered the lessons their cruelty had unknowingly given me. Resilience, focus, independence. In a strange way, their mistreatment had been my greatest training. By morning my decision was clear. Called my assistant. "Schedule a meeting with my parents' company. I'll review their proposal personally." When they arrived, they looked nervous. The roles completely reversed now. They sat across from me in my glass office, eyes darting between the corporate awards lining my shelves. I opened their file. Their numbers were bad, very bad. They were losing clients, bleeding cash, and operating on outdated strategies. Still, I saw potential. Buried under the mistakes was a company that could be reborn, if led the right way. I closed the file and looked up. "Here's my offer," I said. "I'll invest in your company, but not as your daughter, as your business partner." Dad blinked. "You'd take that risk?" "Not a risk," I said quietly. "A choice." Mom looked like she was about to cry. "Why would you help us after everything we did?" I smiled softly. "Because I'm not you." Over the next few months, I worked closely with their struggling business. I brought in my team, restructured their finances, retrained their managers, and modernized operations. It wasn't easy. Dad had to swallow his pride more times than he could count. Mom learned to take direction from me. Sometimes during meetings, she'd watch me in quiet awe. She'd whisper things like, "You've become someone incredible, Maya." And every time I'd reply, "I just became the person I always was." "You finally noticed." Slowly, the company started turning around. Contracts came back. Clients returned. Profit margins improved. It was no longer Dad's company. It was ours. One evening, after a long day at work, I found Mom waiting in my office. She was holding a small box. "I wanted to give you something," she said softly. Inside was a faded photograph. Me at 16, scrubbing the kitchen floor, smiling up at the camera. I remembered that day. It was the only time I'd looked happy doing chores, because I had secretly just gotten accepted into a scholarship program, but hadn't told anyone yet. Mom's voice trembled. "You were always smiling, even when we made things hard for you." I looked at her, because I knew one day I'd be free. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "We don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope someday you can give it." I didn't answer right away. Forgiveness wasn't something I could hand over easily. It wasn't a transaction, it was a process. But I knew I was closer than I'd ever been. That a year later, we celebrated the merger of our two companies. It was a grand event. Journalists, investors, cameras flashing everywhere. On stage, Dad handed me the microphone. "There was a time," he said to the crowd, "when I thought I was the teacher. But my daughter, she taught me what true leadership looks like." I looked out into the audience, at the faces of people who once doubted me, who once pitied me, who now looked at me with respect. "Success," I said, "isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right, even when no one believes in you." The audience clapped. Mom wiped her eyes. And for the first time, the applause didn't feel like noise. Felt like peace. After the event, I stood alone on the balcony overlooking the city skyline. The night was quiet, warm, filled with distant music and city lights. Mom and Dad joined me, standing side by side. No words this time. Just silence. A silence that finally felt comfortable. Mom whispered, "We're proud of you, Maya." Dad added, "And grateful." I looked at them, not as the parents who broke me, but as the people I had finally forgiven. "We all learn in our own ways," I said softly. "Some lessons just take longer to sink in." They nodded, and for the first time we stood as equals. They once made me clean up their mess. Now I helped them rebuild their future. I didn't just rise above. I became the person I needed when they couldn't be. The day after the will reading, the world felt different. The house that once smelled of vanilla candles and Sunday pies now reeked of dust and regret. I kept walking through Grandma's study. Every book, every photo, every little paperclip felt like a piece of her voice whispering in the silence. But there was something else in that silence too. Something sharp, something off. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma's smug smile at the lawyer's office. The way she'd crossed her arms when the will was read in her favor. How she didn't even flinch when Grandma's charitable foundation was erased from the new document. Well, that wasn't right. Grandma wouldn't have done that. I got up, grabbed the golden locket from my nightstand, and opened it again. Inside, the tiny, almost invisible key. I turned it over in my hand, whispering to myself, "What are you hiding, Grandma?" Then it hit me. The small wooden box in her study, the one with the faded rose carving. Grandma always kept it locked, tucked beneath the bottom shelf of her writing desk. Could it be? I tiptoed downstairs. The old house creaked beneath my feet, like it was trying to warn me. I knelt in front of the desk, found the hidden box, and slid the tiny key into the lock. Fit. With a soft click, the lid opened. Inside lay a neat stack of letters, and a folded envelope with a wax seal marked R.M. Reynolds, the initials of our family lawyer. I unfolded the first letter. It was dated just 2 weeks before Grandma died. Her handwriting wavered, but her words were clear. "If Emma ever pressures me to sign anything, please confirm directly with me before changing my will. I fear her intentions have grown self-serving. Margaret Holloway." My chest tightened. I read the next letter, a copy of a note sent to Mr. Reynolds. "Should anything happen, the true version of my will remains in your safe, sealed with the blue ribbon. Do not release it until the reading, and only if I personally confirm its change." Froze. The will we heard had a red ribbon. Red. The next morning, I drove straight to Mr. Reynolds' office. He looked startled when I handed him the letters. "Lily, where did you get these?" "From Grandma's desk. And I think my sister forged the new will." He exhaled slowly, his brow furrowing. That would explain quite a few inconsistencies. Inconsistencies? Yes. I remember Mrs. Holloway calling to say she wanted to make some updates. But then, the day before our meeting, she cancelled. She said she was too ill. Then Emma arrived alone, claiming her mother had signed new papers at home and just wanted me to notarize them. My blood ran cold. "So you didn't witness Grandma's signature?" He shook his head. Emma insisted I didn't need to, said it was all routine. I should have known better. He looked genuinely ashamed. Then he stood and opened his office safe. From the back, he pulled out an older envelope, sealed in blue ribbon. "Grandma's true will." "Lily," he said softly, "I think your grandmother knew this day would come." When he broke the seal and read it aloud, tears welled in my eyes. The inheritance wasn't about money. It was about legacy. Grandma had left the house and savings to be shared equally between me and Emma. But her larger assets, the land and trust funds, were to go into a foundation to help underprivileged students, a cause she deeply cared about. That was Grandma, fair, loving, wise. And Emma had tried to erase all of it. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. Mr. Reynolds sighed. "Forgery of a will is a serious crime. If you wish, we can take this to court. But it will destroy your sister's reputation. Are you ready for that?" I didn't answer right away, because part of me still saw her as my sister, the girl who used to braid my hair, who defended me from bullies, who brought me cookies after heartbreaks. But that girl was gone, and this new woman had tried to steal not just money, but Grandma's memory. "Do it," I whispered. "Let the truth come out." 2 weeks later, the case went public. It was small-town news, but to us, it felt like the world was watching. Emma stood on the opposite side of the courtroom, polished as ever, her lawyer's confidence crumbling for once beneath the weight of real guilt. Mr. Reynolds testified first, presenting the real will and Grandma's handwritten letters. The judge examined every page carefully. Then came the moment that broke everything open. The handwriting expert's testimony. He held up both wills, the blue ribbon one and the red ribbon forgery, and pointed to the signature. "This second signature," he said, "was traced. It's not authentic." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Emma's composure shattered. Her hands trembled, eyes darting toward me. For once, she had nothing left to argue. After the verdict, she approached me outside the courthouse. Her voice was quiet, almost childlike. "You think you've won, don't you?" "No," I said softly. "I think Grandma did." She looked away, jaw tight. "You always wanted to be the good one, the favorite." "Well, congratulations." I shook my head. "I didn't want to be the favorite, Emma. I just wanted to be family." For a moment, her eyes softened. Guilt flickered there, brief as lightning. Then she turned and walked away. Weeks later, I stood in Grandma's garden, trimming the roses she used to love. The air smelled of rain and fresh earth. The foundation was officially registered now, the Margaret Holloway Scholarship Fund. Her name would live on, helping students who reminded me of her. Kind, hopeful, brave. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "We did it, Grandma. Justice and love." The wind rustled through the trees like an answer. But as I turned to head inside, I noticed something sitting on the porch rail. An envelope, slightly damp from the mist. Inside, a note written in Emma's handwriting. "You were right. About everything. I'm leaving town. I need to find who I am without the greed. Take care of the garden. And don't hate me." There was no address, no number, just those words. I sighed, tucking the note into my pocket. Maybe forgiveness would come someday. But for now, peace was enough. The weeks after Emma left were quiet. Almost too quiet. The house that once echoed with her heels clicking across the hallway now only carried the gentle hum of wind through the curtains. Every morning, I'd make tea the way Grandma liked it. Honey and lemon. and sit by the window, letting the steam fog the glass as the world outside slowly began to heal. The scandal had shaken the town, but people soon moved on. What stayed, though, was the truth. Grandma's name restored, her foundation thriving, her will honored. Still, sometimes when I saw the empty chair by the porch, my heart ached. Because even after everything, Emma was still my sister. One rainy afternoon, a delivery truck pulled into the driveway. The driver stepped out, holding a small wooden crate wrapped in brown paper. "Delivery for Ms. Lily Holloway," he said. "From an anonymous sender." I signed for it, my curiosity prickling. When I opened the box, I found a single envelope and a framed photograph wrapped carefully in fabric. The photograph made my heart stop. It was of the three of us, Grandma, Emma, and me, sitting on the garden swing, sunlight in our hair, laughter frozen in time. We must have been around 10 and 16 then, both clutching melting popsicles, Grandma smiling at us like she held the world in her arms. On the back, written in Emma's handwriting, were the words, "For all the things I ruined." This was one I never forgot. Beneath the frame was the envelope. Inside, a letter, longer than I expected. Studio microphone, Emma's letter. "Lily, I don't know where to start. Maybe with I'm sorry. But those words feel too small for the things I did. When Grandma got sick, I panicked. I told myself I was protecting her, that I deserved what she built, because I worked so hard for everything in my life. But the truth is, I wasn't protecting her. I was protecting my ego. The moment I saw that forged will in court, I realized how far I'd fallen. I'd let greed erase the person Grandma raised me to be. Asterisk. I left town because I needed to start over. Somewhere no one knew me as the lawyer who lied. I've taken a job in a small legal aid clinic up north. I'm helping families who can't afford representation. It's strange. For once, I'm using my degree for good. Maybe Grandma was right when she said that money tests people more than poverty ever does. I hope one day, when the garden blooms again, you'll save a seat for me. Until then, take care of her roses for both of us. Asterisk. Love, Emma. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the tears drop onto the page. They weren't angry tears. They were cleansing. The kind that wash away the ache of years and leave behind something lighter. That spring, the garden bloomed more beautifully than ever before. Roses in every color, pink, white, and deep crimson. It was as if Grandma herself had whispered life back into the soil. One morning, as I watered the tulips, I saw a familiar figure walking up the path. A woman, her hair tied back, a simple canvas bag slung over her shoulder. She looked different, softer, humbler. No designer clothes, no arrogance in her walk. She stopped at the gate, unsure if she should come in. Smiled. "The roses missed you." She exhaled, relief flooding her face. "I missed them too." We sat on the porch swing, the same one from the photo, sipping tea in silence. For a while, words weren't needed. The creak of the swing, the chirp of distant birds, the smell of rain-soaked earth. It said everything. Finally she spoke. "I saw the foundation online. You did a good thing, Lily." "We did a good thing," I said gently. "It was Grandma's dream. I just followed it." Emma smiled faintly. "You always were the better one." I shook my head. "No. I just had more time to remember what she taught us." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time in years I saw my sister again. Not the rival, not the liar, not the lawyer who lost her way. Just Emma. Before leaving that evening, I gave her the golden locket. She looked shocked. "But Grandma gave this to you. And she gave us both her love," I said. "This belongs to both of us now." She opened it, smiling softly at the tiny key inside. "It's strange," she murmured. "I spent years chasing everything, and the real treasure was this. Her faith in us." He nodded. "Then let's not waste it again." We hugged, a real hug this time. No guilt, no resentment. Just two sisters who finally understood the cost of love and the price of greed. Months passed. Together, Emma and I began expanding the Margaret Holloway Foundation. She handled the legal side. I ran the operations. We visited schools, handed out scholarships, and spoke at community events about Grandma's message. That family wealth means nothing if it divides hearts instead of uniting them. At one event, Emma told the crowd, "I used to believe success meant winning every case. Now I know it means earning forgiveness and using your mistakes to help someone else." I looked at her from the stage, my chest full. Grandma would have been proud. One summer evening, I sat on the porch again, just as the sun began to set. The sky burned gold and pink, the same colors Grandma used to call heaven's brushstrokes. Emma joined me, carrying 2 cups of tea. We sat quietly, watching the light fade over the garden she'd once planted with her own hands. "Do you think she knows?" Emma asked softly. "She always knew," I said. "She left us everything we needed, just not in the way we expected." The wind blew gently, rustling the roses. For a second, it felt like Grandma was right there with us, smiling at peace, her laughter blending with the whisper of petals. And maybe, in some way, she was. Grandma didn't just leave us money. She left us truth. She showed us that greed can destroy a family. But love can rebuild it. Sometimes, justice doesn't come with flashing lights or loud applause. It comes in quiet rooms, where truth finally speaks louder than greed. Grandma's will didn't just divide her fortune. It revealed who her real family was. Lily didn't need to destroy her sister. She just had to let karma finish the job. If this story touched you, give it a like. And tell me in the comments, do you believe people like Emma ever truly change? And if you love stories where truth wins and hearts heal, subscribe for more, because here, every story reminds us that integrity always finds its way home.